Hey guys, this is Gary, and I'm the Vice President of Business Development here at Vistara. And today we're going to talk about managing modern IT, in particular managing Microsoft applications in that context of managing modern IT. And you know, when we think about managing Microsoft applications, it's kind of like very interesting for a couple of reasons. One, it's a very popular suite of applications. There's a lot of Microsoft applications out there, and obviously pretty much all businesses have standardized on things like Active Directory and Exchange, part of their infrastructure. And as we transition from being primarily integrators of technology to managing services, Microsoft applications wind up being one of those particularly challenging suites of applications because they have the legacy of being designed for client-server functions. We'll talk more about some of the reasons, particular challenges of administering Microsoft applications in a modern IT environment. Before we dive into that, it's probably worth introducing Vistara and understanding where we're coming from here. Vistara is headquartered here in San Jose, California. We have a good install base. We launched just not quite a year ago. We launched the brand in January 2013, and we've been growing pretty quickly, mainly going to market in North America and Japan. We have great partnerships in North America and Japan. Now, we are a management platform. We're a little different than normal monitoring, management, and orchestration, and all the IT tools you're used to. We're a little different. We're delivered as a SaaS platform. And because we are a true cloud, a true IT operations cloud, we have some advantages, right? We're multi-tenant in that you can have multiple, of course, many different clients in our massively scalable IT operations cloud, but we're also multi-tenant not only on the service delivery side, we're also multi-tenant on the service origin side. All right, so one of the things that's kind of unique about things like Salesforce.com is that they have Force.com and App Exchange that allow many service originators to deliver services and make their application environment richer. And we're the same thing. We are a true cloud platform, and we have a number of partners that augment our core capabilities in not only in monitoring management, but also in service delivery. We have our own technology, and of course we're built like a cloud solution, so we have that great advantage of constantly being updated and being massively scalable. And during our technology that I'll show you that helps us manage Microsoft applications is the technology has been in use for about 8 years, primarily as an enabling technology for service providers. And so we're really demand-driven in how the application has been developed. And of course, we have extensive integrations with industry technologies, the technologies you probably already own. Okay. So that's enough about us. Let's talk about the environment in which we're managing these Microsoft applications. You know, the reality is that, you know, it's true that IT practitioners are managing their Microsoft environment on physical devices, you know, Microsoft Server installed right on a server, or even desktop applications installed right on the desktop. They're also installed in virtualized environments, private cloud solutions, and increasingly deployed in public cloud solutions. So it's kind of an interesting challenge because these are applications that were originally developed with the assumption that they were going to be hosted in a client-server manner and with the assumptions of physical infrastructure. As we've moved to virtualized and private cloud solutions, the management software that's used to govern the use of these applications, to manage these applications, haven't always integrated the idea that these applications would be deployed in a hybrid IT environment. So across all these applications, these different deployment models, physical, virtual, cloud, we still have to do all the IT lifecycle stuff. You know, you have to inventory the infrastructure, you have to govern patch management, and you have to govern access. You have to do all the things that you need to do for ITIL, the service delivery things, change, incident, problem, and the blocking and tackling, you know, the things that go on in the background, the monitoring and the adds, moves, and changes. So it creates kind of a unique environment, right, where all of these things have to be done across all the different delivery methods for an application that really originated as a client-server environment. So when we think about this cycle of managing these applications, you know, what the business expects is that we're going to define the services and the SLAs that we're going to deliver to the business. You know, the business is going to give IT some money to deliver email services, Active Directory services based on databases, Microsoft Dynamics, a number of different applications. And once those applications are and those promises are made to the business, then of course IT has to monitor and make sure that we're actually delivering on those promises. But things change, and so you have service management that has to happen, and that there's adds, moves, and changes, and updates and upgrades that have to happen. There's the operation things, adding capacity, patch management, and then there's the cycle of communication that constantly has to happen back to the business. Things change, new services are added to the, new capabilities are added to the services that have been described to the business, and there has to be some mechanism by which IT can communicate change and the success of these applications that are being, these services that are being delivered to the business for whatever that company is funding the IT organization. That's a lot of stuff. Now, Vistara is kind of interesting in that we actually have capabilities that touch on all of these capabilities, these environments. But let's just dive into the operations piece, for example. The best practices for managing Microsoft applications, there's a number of things that one has to do to make sure that the applications, you know, run correctly and continue to run correctly. Obviously, once you get the applications running and the services being delivered to the business, you want to make sure you're creating and managing proper backups. Backups are great. Restores are probably equally important and probably less tested. And you kind of want to be able to make sure that you're able to deliver on the restore promise. Being able to monitor the success of the backups is directly related to the ability to restore, of course. And then there's policies. You know, usage policies for these different applications, mailbox quotas, you know, password reset policies, and all those things have to be looked at and managed by the IT department. Storage requirements. You know, storage is a major driver of cost in the IT organization, and so it's very typical that IT practitioners manage and jealously guard the storage policies, but also to maintain service availability, sometimes storage allocations have to grow. We have to review quotas. You know, I myself, I'm an email hoarder, so I have a lot of email, and I know that our IT staff reach out to me and periodically let me know that you know, a gigabyte or 2 gigabytes of email probably isn't the best thing for application performance. So in my own best interest, I might want to archive some of that. And so that's part of communication, part of how we manage the applications. And tuning memory requirements is also critical for maintaining application performance. And in a virtualized environment, it's a double kind of two-step kind of process, right? There's the allocation of memory to the actual Microsoft applications. There's also being able to allocate more memory to virtual machines so that the application environments are being maintained at a level that's going to perform optimally for the business. And you know, I was talking as I was preparing for this presentation. I was talking to our IT staff and our Exchange administrator. He says one of the things that he spends a lot of time doing is, or just dashboarding is, you know, he's always looking at the queues. Are things trending up or trending down? And he's got alerts set so that he automatically gets notifications about, you know, is mail flowing correctly, or even on a SQL Server, are queries creating queues? Are there hot tables that have queries that are queuing up? So reviewing queues seems like a pretty important part of the success story of managing Microsoft applications. Patching, of course, you want to make sure that your servers are maintaining secure, getting all the secure patches, and antivirus, of course, to make sure that the servers are available and not susceptible to disruption or denial of service because of viruses. And then, of course, out of all of this, the operation also requires that there's audit and compliance that needs to happen, so that we know that the right people are managing the infrastructure and changing it and having privileged access, but not everybody. Making sure that the patches that we intended to be implemented were implemented, but not others. So all of these things contribute to the success of running Microsoft applications. They're all kind of standard things that we all do. But the servers are only half of the application environment in Microsoft applications, because Microsoft apps are typically client-server. I mean, of course, you can use, for example, Outlook Web Access, but even then, there is a client, and the customer's experience is completely dependent upon the entire solution being managed. So when we think about managing Microsoft applications, it's really important that we think about how do we manage the customer's experience, the customer's success, and that means that we have to consider managing the desktop environment, mobile devices, laptops, and this is made complicated when you have bring your own device policies or maybe liberal administration policies for desktops. So when everyone is an administrator of their half of their user experience, it sure is pretty important that IT have some kind of window and some kind of mechanism to manage that half of the IT of the service delivery. So here's the challenge, though. In order to cover all of this, there's a lot of different tools that typically one would use. Desktop management software, mobile device management, there's server-side management, there's virtualization management. So we're really accumulating a lot of tools here. And it gets worse when we start thinking about the other half, communicating back to the business and understanding what the business requirements are and communicating to the business our success. You've got your ITIL kind of communication things that need to happen, incident, problem, and change management. Probably more important is the approval process for proposed changes and patches. Really being able to communicate to the business just at a dashboard, kind of on-demand basis, how are we doing? That's part of the answer too for managing Microsoft applications, right? So if a customer is experiencing some sort of challenge with Outlook Web Access, it sure would be nice to be able to go to the dashboard and see how the entire IT organization is doing. Is there a network challenge? Is there a server problem? Or is it maybe just the customer themselves? That really enables self-service, because if we can get customers to reboot their desktop instead of calling the help desk, that saves everyone time and creates customer satisfaction. And then we need to know when there are alerts, right? So when there is something meaningful that happens in the infrastructure, we sure want to be the first to know. The IT practitioners really want to know before the phone starts ringing that there's an incident, and so that we can communicate properly back to the business and say, well, yeah, we know about that. It's already fixed. Maybe try relogging in or something like that. But if there's a challenge that isn't easily resolved, the escalation process and being able to reliably call for help and escalate, that's an important part of managing Microsoft applications, so that we can reliably get to resolution when there are problems, dispatching, and then, of course, documenting standard operating procedures with runbooks. So all of these things, just two of those little bubbles in that IT lifecycle management, and really represent the majority of the work that IT invests in managing Microsoft apps. So the challenge here is that you might wind up with one application for managing infrastructure or inventory, and another one for managing service metrics, and another one for managing communication through help desk, and more tools for policies, and another one for correlation. And what the challenge is that each of these tools winds up being something else that the IT practitioners, the IT professionals, have to manage. And they become the things that at the end of the month, the IT practitioners spend a lot of time trying to integrate data from, just so we have a view of what's going on in the infrastructure. So I think that these tools are important, right? But the question that we're all facing right now when we're managing complex environments and managing Microsoft applications is, where does most of the work actually happen? And how can we get some efficiencies so that we don't have to work so hard managing so many pieces, and so that we can get one source of truth for reporting, and so that the silos, the database administrators have the same information as the server administrators, who have the same information as the business system analysts who are communicating back to the business units. How do we get everybody the same information? How do we get all this data out of silos? The truth is that you're not going to get away from having more than one set of tools. Let's face it, the architects of infrastructure and the database administrators, they actually need specialized tools to get in there and do, hot table analysis. And the truth is also that, while you're going to have more than one set of applications, the truth is that it costs IT a lot of time for most of the IT practitioners doing application hopping from application to application. Your help desk gets a call, and they have to log a ticket into a ticketing system, and then they have to jump over to another application to see how the Microsoft is Active Directory up and running. Does the person have credentials? Are they locked out? And then they have to go to another application to find out maybe it's a network problem, or maybe there's a web server problem. The point is here is that application hopping is a significant problem. And what's needed here is that the implication of application hopping isn't just wasted time, it's also that it makes us blind. We can't actually see what's going on. And so when managing Microsoft applications, it's pretty important that we get to a place where we actually have one source of truth for most of the work that we do. You're always going to have the outliers, and your level 3 engineers are probably going to need their own set of tools, and that's okay. But really, the question is what do we do for the level 1 and level 2 guys? Where 80% of the work is happening, how do we centralize service delivery and save some of that time that they're spending going from application to application, so that we can get all of the best information in one place? So that runbooks become standardized, and there's standard operating procedures, there's pre-approved change control, and when somebody figures out how to do something to fix a common problem, how do we capture that knowledge so that we can repeat that stellar performance and make everybody successful with the same process? It's really hard to capture knowledge if you're running in 4 or 5 different applications. So, the trick for us is to figure out how do we keep the tools that we love and need for our, level 3 engineers, but kind of get to a place where we're really being efficient for the work that's being done by the level 1, level 2 guys. And, if we were able to do that, and I think everyone has the experience where you buy, best-in-class software, and you implement the things you absolutely need right away, and then many of the modules wind up sitting on the shelfware. How do we save that money? How do we get it back? How do we pay for what we use rather than spending all of our time as IT practitioners integrating the tools we need to manage the infrastructure instead of managing the infrastructure? How do we get past this? How do we end the cycle? And if we could, it would be great to give these level 1 and level 2 staff members who do most of the add, clues, and changes, who do most of the administration, who have most of the customer touch. How do we get them a tool set that allows them to centralize operations, so that now IT has one source of truth for talking and communicating back? And of course, we have an opinion that Slack software is great because it upgrades itself and gets you out of the business of actually upgrading your own software. And of course, cloud software has a great ability to aggregate the investment in security so that you get both enterprise class security as well as the scalability. So we think part of the answer is let's get a layer of management that rides above element management. Let your L3 engineers have the tools that they need, especially tools, probably less of them, but get all the Microsoft application management into one pane of glass so that the entire life cycle can be managed from one interface. And then, we get a lot of a virtuous cycle here. We're getting back some of the efficiencies for that staff, and then we're getting back the time that we would use to manage those applications, and we're getting a better quality result with greater standardization of result of execution and greater greater clarity at the end of the month. So Vistara has a lot of these attributes, right? We allow you to manage Microsoft apps in one pane of glass, from the physical and virtual interfaces, the network, the software, the server side, the client side, the communication, patch management, antivirus, the approval processes, and of course we result in one source of truth, and we kind of get you around the problem of having to hop from application to application. In most cases, you can do just about everything that an IT organization will need to do in one pane of glass. And here's the thing: you don't have to give up the tools that you've got. The trick is to embrace and extend the tools that already exist in an IT environment. So, Vistara, for example, has ready integrations with System Center, SCOM, Microsoft SCOM, ServiceNow, and we have our own ticketing system. We think it's great, but if you've already got everyone trained up on ServiceNow, we have bidirectional integration. Snaps right in, and off you go. And the important thing here is that once you've integrated those applications into Vistara, Vistara becomes a reporting portal at the end of the month. It lets everybody do the work in one pane of glass, but you get one source of truth that kind of rationalizes all of the reporting at the end of the month. Okay. So how does it work? Well, Vistara is a cloud platform, so we've got the IT Operations Cloud. We have our own infrastructure. We're not hosted on someone else's cloud infrastructure. We are a true cloud architecture. We have, customers and enterprise IT staff access the IT Operations Cloud through a web browser. We're going to show you that in just a second. And then, in order to have your data center communicate back to Vistara, we have a Vistara gateway. It's a little virtual machine that runs in your data center, and it has all of the service protocols necessary to manage the data center. SMP, WMI, IPMI, all the acronyms that you can think of, and it also has all of the API-level integrations necessary to manage enterprise-class infrastructure. And the Vistara gateway creates a two-port virtual private network fully encrypted back to Vistara, the IT Operations Cloud, where all the data that we collect and all the data that we process is stored in our secure databases. But more importantly, the Vistara gateway allows for a management mode where you can choose to manage a data center with no agent. Now, of course, if you want to be event-driven rather than polling-driven, we also have the ability to have a Vistara agent installed on servers. And the Vistara agent will monitor the internals of an operating system or an application, in particularly useful with Microsoft applications, and we'll show you that, so that as conditions change on the server, instead of the Vistara gateway having to ask, how are things going? Instead, the Vistara agent will report to the Vistara gateway. There's a condition, you set a level for queues, and as soon as that reaches that queue level, the Vistara agent reports back to the Vistara gateway, which talks to the IT Operations Cloud, and boom, your IT staff have visibility and are the first to know what's going on in the infrastructure. There's a couple other ways. Vistara does allow for management of infrastructure in external private cloud or public cloud, things like OpenStack or Amazon Web Services. So you can provision and then monitor and even have an agent installed in servers that are out there in Amazon or Rackspace and get the same management as you have for your data center. One of the things I hear about frequently from customers is, the CIO learns that maybe the marketing department has started one more application that's out there in Amazon. There's one more Amazon account for the company. Vistara is a great way to solve that problem, because now you can bring all of those accounts into one pane of glass and manage them all in one place, and then get your one source of truth for reporting back. And that means rather than making the business wrong for doing the things that they thought were necessary, you make them right, and you make them successful, and you can add the IT goodness of governance and management for that infrastructure, and bring it all with one pane of glass. So that's kind of unique, right? That's a unique capability that a cloud platform allows you to do, is to aggregate all of this infrastructure and all these services, regardless of where they were originated. And then there's one other deployment model that's just worth mentioning really quickly. A lot of IT practitioners will have a distributed enterprise where there are remote offices. We have a customer that's very much like a donut shop. They have a donut chain of donut shops where they have a data center, but then they have these little remote offices with just one or two computers in them. It doesn't make sense to have a gateway out there. The Vistara agent can support one other deployment node. It has the ability to operate as a Vistara gateway. So instead of having dedicated Vistara gateways for very small deployments, maybe less than 100 devices, you can have a Vistara agent running on a server that maybe is running an application, and not only manage that application, but manage a few other devices in that small office. So a lot of different deployment models that kind of mimic what we see in the marketplace. Again, Vistara has been engineered by demand, by what the market actually needs. So we have a lot of these things sorted out, these different deployment models. So let's have a look at Vistara. I'll take you through and just show you what's going on here with Vistara. So I've got a web browser here. I hope you can all see it. And if I were just to go to map.vistara.com, I'm just going to log in. And it logs me in right into a dashboard. And right now I'm looking at my business unit, Lumen Alto, and I can see an inventory of different servers. And I can actually drill right into the different servers that I have and see all of my, these are Linux servers. We're talking about Windows servers. So let's take a look at the Windows servers here. If I go over here to the Windows servers, I've got my Windows servers here, and I can very quickly view servers by class. These are all my Windows servers. And I can tell a lot of stuff about these Windows servers just from the inventory dashboard. So this is just an inventory view. I can see which version of the operating system they're running and their IP address, and of course their server name. We can create notes about these different servers, like don't reboot on Saturday, or whatever kind of notes you want. We can see if someone's logged in right now. Before we started this webinar, I was logged in here, so these are recent logouts that you can see there. You can see whether these devices are physical devices, as this DC21, this is a Active Directory server. This is a physical device, whereas this Exchange is a physical device, and this Exchange server is a virtual machine, right? So we can tell a lot, and we can also see whether the devices have a Vistara agent, so we can actually get into the internals, or whether it's just being managed as an agent-less infrastructure. And of course, we can choose to launch a console and log in. We'll go through that in just a second. So what are the things we need to do to manage a server, right? An Exchange server. So let's look at, here's this Exchange server, Exchange 21, Exchange server that we were looking at just a minute ago. And when we look at the internals of the application, mail sent per day, that's a good dashboard kind of thing to look at. We can actually get in here and see who, weekends, obviously we're not sending very many emails, but in this lab environment, we're seeing that there are some emails going out, and see Thursday's a big day for email. We can also get in there and see how we're doing with top mailboxes. Looks like Bonnie here is, he's got a pretty big mailbox. It's a little bigger than others. And we can see that, mails received per day. We can see the different traffic through the different infrastructure. We can drill into all of these different things and see how we're doing, kind of at a glance. More importantly, the administrator of the infrastructure, they can not only check the queues and so forth, they can also see the services that are actually supporting the IT infrastructure. And if they wanted to, we can actually get into the services directly and begin managing them, turning them on and off. And of course, all of the management that's going on in the infrastructure is logged. And even if I were to go and get a console, all of the console sessions are also recorded. Right? So now we have control of this infrastructure, regardless of whether it's a physical server, as this EX21 is, or maybe I've got a server out here in, in Amazon, and maybe I've got something like this Microsoft Dynamics. You know, I can also manage that infrastructure just like it was in my own data center. Same desktop environment, same management console, the same reporting mechanisms, and the same acuity with which I can see into the infrastructure, turning on and off services and so forth. Now, this server, as I showed you when we first looked at the dashboard, has an agent on it, and we've actually discovered that this server has IIS running on it, has a SQL Server running on it, and you can see all the statistics very quickly. It looks like some of the services have been turned off. Active Directory Helper is turned off. Well, I could go turn that on if I wanted to. But more importantly, and this is an important thing here, managing the server itself and the application itself is not sufficient to satisfy the promise that we may have made to the business. The business only cares about whether or not they can consume the services that we promised them. And so I've got a number of different servers that make up this service that I've called Exchange. And I have a service map here. And if I go look at the service map, I can begin telling, you know, what's going on here. It looks like there is one of these servers in this infrastructure. There's a mailbox server that's down, and that actually may be degrading my infrastructure. But at a, you know, just at a heartbeat's notice, I can go in here and I can actually tell, you know, what's going on in the infrastructure and drill right into these different servers and find out, well, why is the server down? Why is the service that I'm expecting to be up, why is it down? And I can find out, you know, how do I manage that? Now, managing these servers, there's also this governance piece that we were talking about. So if I look at this Exchange server, this one here, if I look at this Exchange server and I wanted to see how are we doing on patches, well, this is missing 0 patches. It's got 56 patches installed. If I go look at its main server, or its Active Directory server, the Active Directory server is doing fine. Got some computers talking to it, got some users talking to it. There's no one logged into it right now. But if I go look at its patches, yeah, it's got 41 patches missing. Well, now I'm concerned about the security of this infrastructure. If I go over to the Maintenance tab here, and I take a look at patch approvals, let's see why this thing doesn't have all of its patches. So I go to Lumen Alto servers, let's look at DC21. Let's find out why doesn't this one have all of its patches? Well, it looks like it's missing a bunch of feature packs, but how about security? I'm worried about security. Well, it's actually got all the security and critical patches. Now, how this actually works is I actually have a patch approval process here, and it's fairly easy for me to choose which patches would be applied to different servers. So I can whitelist and blacklist those different patches. In fact, when I go and scan the different devices for patches, and I see the different patches, I actually have a process by which I can scan, approve, and install the patches. And I can install them automatically by approval, or I can do that manually and schedule them manually. And I'll show you how to schedule them manually here in just a second. But the important thing here is that this approval process is really the heart of governance, right? It's the ability to say that there are some patches that we've tested, go ahead and install them, and other patches, no, certainly not during quarter end, and maybe afterwards, right? So we have a whitelist, blacklist capability, and actually one of the advantages of the cloud solution is that we actually have the ability to let you choose, or actually we send you a suggested whitelist, blacklist every month. So you actually get some value out of the cloud platform in that we're actually looking at the common patches for Linux and Windows and letting you know which ones we think are good patches or not. And then you can choose to subscribe to use that or not, and you can do your own whitelisting and blacklisting of patches. Well, I said I would show you how to schedule. So let's show you how to schedule a patch real quick. if I go over here to these Windows servers, it's really easy to kind of get in there and start seeing and managing. So if I wanted to, I can manage more things by assigning templates. We have hundreds of templates that can be applied and different thresholds that can be custom monitored. But if I wanted to schedule maintenance, I can just go to schedule maintenance and then choose a time when we might do a patch scan or when we might apply those patches. So now it becomes really easy to allow, for change control and manage change control. Let's see here. So that covers a lot of the management capability. Oh, one more thing, audit reporting is really important. So one of the deficiencies that people stumble into of many monitoring tools is it's great to have log analysis and being able to see what's going on in logs. I'll skip that here. We, of course, have logs and we can do logs. But once somebody gets console, it's often very hard to understand what's going on. And more importantly, once somebody figures out how to fix something, and you ask them, how did you fix that outage? How did you sort that out? How did you, fix name resolution? Sometimes, after you're all done, it's really hard to remember what you exactly did. With Vistara, it's not a problem, right? You can just go ahead and everything is recorded. So I'm just going to, somebody made a change here, and I'll just open it and play back a session where somebody was actually doing it. It's Java-based. So we got a little Java player, and we actually store all the console sessions. We store them as at the protocol level. We store them, the actual protocol in the cloud, so it's not a screenshot. But you can download these videos as Flash animations. So now you can begin accumulating a library of knowledge from your experts in managing Microsoft applications and create training right out of the actual experience. And more importantly, because we can actually go and capture all of these, and script up all these things as runs with automations, you can then begin standardizing common activities, common changes. All right, so that's a lot of stuff I've shown you. Look at all these tabs I have open. Service maps and patch management and dashboards that let you communicate to the business. These can be offered right out to the business users so they can see what's going on. Inventory of the infrastructure, being able to actually see end-of-month reporting. Let's take a look at some end-of-month reporting. Actually, I already brought some up. You can automatically generate end-of-month reports for how we're doing on our Microsoft applications, how we're doing with our Microsoft apps, how we're doing with the availability of devices. These are all brandable and automatically downloadable and created at the end of every month so that IT now has one source of truth for how we're actually doing, right? So how we're managing the infrastructure, how we're doing on all the aspects, how we're doing on ticketing and service response, as well as uptime and availability, patch management, security. All these reports are available, so that it's easy for IT to begin managing itself, just like the business would expect. Okay. Eric, do we have any questions from the audience here? Anything?
Yeah, we do, Gary. Thank you. So we've got a couple questions we received already, and the rest of the audience would encourage you to go ahead and post any other questions you want to add to the questions area, and we'll address them. So let's take these in order. First question is, can we manage Microsoft applications that are running on Amazon EC2? We've got somebody who runs some of their instances in Amazon. And if so, how is that experience different from the on-premise case?
It's a good question. The great thing about Vistara is it's the same management interface. It's the same capabilities, whether you are for managing the actual server itself. It's the same whether you're in the external cloud or in your own data center, because we use the same tools in either place, right? You can use the Vistara agent to manage the internals of an application server in your data center, as well as you might inside the cloud. It's the same mechanism. That means you have the same level of access. You have the same monitoring capabilities of the internal processes of the operating system as you do in your own data center. So it should be pretty much same reporting, same agent, same console, and same level of access. Hope that answers the question.
Okay, great. And then the next question is, we don't have a SharePoint administrator. There's a local VAR that helped us set that up. Does Vistara licensing require us to buy seats for the VAR?
Good question. So Vistara is a cloud platform, and the way you know, we're licensed is we're licensed by device, and it's a monthly thing, right, per device per month. And so actually, if you wanted to extend seats to your supply chain of services, your supply chain of help, no, it actually doesn't cost anymore. You would wind up going over here into the Setup tab and defining a role so that you define a security policy for your partners, right? So that you give them the right level of access and maybe limit them to a class of servers at a location, right? Because we have all these different capabilities that can be allocated for just watching or managing, as well as being able to have that role assigned to Microsoft servers that are at a site, or maybe Microsoft servers that are at a site, or maybe just the ones that are for human resources, right? So we have that part covered, right? And as far as licensing, it doesn't cost more to allow your supply chain of help to help you, and we enable the appropriate level of security, not only in audit but also in role-based access, so that you can do the things that you need to do there.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, our Windows team uses SCUM, so what value do we get out of using Vistara?
Oh, really good question. So, Vistara integrates with a lot of tools, right? The alert browser can ingest alerts from just about any tool set. So if you've already got alerting set up with, you know, a bunch of different tools, that's okay. We can actually ingest them and use our filtering capability to do unified alerts, and then you can use our escalation processes to manage escalations, right? So now you're getting the value of different escalation policies, even very complex policies that let you have different servers have different call trees for different hours and different service levels, and different contact lists if the business needs to be informed. So yeah, what you get by integrating Vistara with your SCOM implementation is the rest of the IT lifecycle, right? SCOM's great for managing Windows servers, but you know, your Linux guys and your if you've got some IBM P590s, 690s, or and you got maybe some EMC storage, all that stuff's managed too, right? And they probably all got element management too. What we offer is bring all that into one management plane, so that the life cycle of management, the communication out to the users and the reporting at the end of the month is unified. It's one source of truth, one message back to the business. So that's what you get out of it, right? You get this ticketing capability, you get the ability to have, you know, runbook automations triggered by thresholds in the alerting. You get a lot, right? All the stuff we've been talking about, and the end-of-month reporting, right, which is where the money is at the end of the month, being able to actually talk to and speak to the business about the value that IT has delivered back to the business.
Okay, great. We don't seem to have any more questions left at this time. So, Gary, do you want to finish up with any final comments, and then I'll tell people where they can find more information?
Yeah, you know, my request is let's, you know, I've only scratched the surface. There's a lot more to Vistara. I mean, we didn't really even get into the ticketing system and the instant change. And, you know, there's a lot here, right? Because we do manage the entire IT lifecycle. Well, I'd love an opportunity to sit down and talk about all of these capabilities, and the ones that are in particular that are interesting to each of you. And you know, I always learn something from conversations with IT practitioners. So let's get a demo schedule. Maybe you can just fire off an email to me, Gary at Vistara IT, or sales at Vistara IT. We'll get a whole team of people ready to help you. And by all means, take a look at our website, www.vistaraIT.com, where we have a lot more content there, and videos and training, documentation, and we'd sure love to share it with you. Anyway, give us a shout out at sales@vistaraIT.com or Gary at VistaraIT.com, and we'll be very happy to schedule a demo and learn about your requirements. Thanks, everybody.